Explain the Hype is a series where I talk about albums that have a lot of hype, a lot of critical acclaim, a lot of fans that love the album, adore the album, and I'm kind of left out in the cold, not really sure why the said album is as highly praised as it is. And of course, today I'm talking about Eminem, one of the biggest rappers of all time. Some people even say one of the greatest rappers of all time, certainly in a lot of people's top 10 rappers of all time. Wouldn't make my top 10 list, but a lot of people would have him in their top 10. Definitely in the top 10 biggest of all time in terms of commercial success and of course critical acclaim too. I've been vocal in the past about Eminem. I certainly ripped into his Revival album because that was a piece of shit. And I've said that I have kind of only really ever liked Eminem for the singles, and I know a lot of fans who might be tuning into this video thinking, oh, this guy, he just isn't a true fan, he only cares about the singles. But let me tell you, I have given him a big chance. I have listened to some of his albums plenty of times, and I can tell you right now, so many, especially the Eminem Show, which I thought had really weak production considering it was Dr. Dre doing it. Like, I'm just wondering what it is about Eminem that people think is so good. And the Marshall Mathers LP may have a lot of highlights. Personally for me, and probably will be, his best album will go down as his best, as long as he keeps dropping more revivals, that is, anyway. And I can see positives from this album, but at the same time, as a full album experience, I cannot say that this is anywhere close to being a classic in my eyes. There are a lot of positives, but I just don't see it at all. I'm going to run down the tracks that I do genuinely think are great from this album, because as much as I'm talking about this album in a negative way, there are always positives to every album that I don't particularly like that much, unless it's something I hate, but I don't hate this album by any means. So there are positives, there's a lot of good stuff on this album. The obvious one I'm going to start with is Stan with Dido. As much as this song was as big as it was, you've got to kind of look at it and think how at the same time. Like, this was one of the biggest songs of the decade, sold millions upon millions, and yet the lyrical theme to this song is really, like, quite deep and not really for the faint-hearted, I guess. I mean, this is some seriously messed up stuff going on in this song. I think Eminem's songwriting here is phenomenal, like phenomenal. I think the way he tells his story is unbelievable. Like, again, would be up there with one of the best hip-hop songs of all time in my opinion, even though it might be an obvious one. I know Eminem fans might be like, it's not even his best song, but let's be real, it is one of his best songs, and it is one of the best hip-hop songs of the decade, like easily, of the 2000s I'm talking about, obviously. Because the storytelling and the story, and I know once you've heard the song once, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, I know the story, I know the twist, so do I really want to go back to it? But honestly, I still go back to it, and I still think I'm still in awe with what he's writing, and still think it's pretty incredible. The Real Slim Shady is pretty funny as well, although that hook does get repetitive. Like, that hook goes on like 5 or 6 times in the song, and I'm kind of done with it, honestly, by like the 3rd time I hear it. But the lyrics are pretty funny. I do like the way he sort of mocks the easily offended crowd that look at Eminem and think that he's a terrible person. Who Knew is another example of that. I do like the way he's self-aware, and he was very much just a guy that just said whatever they wanted, and knew that he was controversial and kind of took advantage of that. And Who Knew is a really good track where he does that as well. I never knew I would get this big, I never knew. Even though the opening line to that song is, I don't do black music, I don't do white music, I make fight music for high schoolers, like... At least he knows his audience, because it really is edgy teenagers that love Eminem, but that just opening line, man, I don't know. There are just so many lines on this album that I just think, like, what? Why did you just say that? And also, as much as I praised Eminem for just, you know, coming out, saying whatever he wanted, I do have to think sometimes, like, he could at least have a bit of empathy. Like, on this song, he's basically like, oh, well, you know, it's not my fault that all these things have happened. You can't just blame it all on me. But let's be real here. He was quite influential and got a big audience at like a huge rate, and his lyrics were quite questionable at times. So I do wonder why he never really sort of addressed that. He could have been a bit better with that. But then again, at the same time, I think it's not really his place, you know? It is music. It's not like it's all serious, so people shouldn't be so soft, because he was getting a lot of bashing from like Fox News and a lot of like media outlets at the time. So to be that guy getting that bashing must be pretty annoying. But at the same time, you got to also look at yourself as well and think maybe what you're doing is a little too much. Now that's not the case for me though. I'm not one of those people that listen to these lyrics and think, oh my god, that's disgusting, I'm offended, oh, you shouldn't say that. I actually am on a sort of different wavelength when it comes to that, because I'm on a different side and I look at these lyrics and think they're a little cringy. Like so many times on this album, like I think he tries to be like shocking and like horrorcore. Like I know he was a guy that was influential in that style, but honestly this is quite vanilla, I think. I mean, not everything, I will get into detail with more of the things that he says, but there are just some really cringy lines that like make me think, really? Like you just said that? That's so lame. It's not scary, it's not edgy. And I don't know, maybe because I've just seen too many like dark comedies. You know, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I've binge watched that to death, and that's pretty offensive at times. So maybe I'm just sort of worn off on that kind of stuff. But honestly, not much of what Eminem really gets me in that kind of way. It's not usually that funny, and it's not usually that dark. It's just a bit lame. And that's the only thing I get from most of these songs. Kill You is the best example of that. I mean, I just don't buy any of it on the song. Like, where he's like, instantly on the first verse of this entire album, he's talking about raping his mum. Like, yeah, he's not being serious, but he wrote it down and said it. So you've got to think, like, really? Like, you wrote that down, rapped it, and thought, oh yeah, this will offend so many people. But that's not got substance. I'm sorry, that doesn't have substance. And a lot of the lyrics to this album I don't think do have substance. I think he just thinks he can get away with being like, I'm a bit messed up, but also I'm doing this in a funny way, so people will just respond to it however they want. But I don't buy it, man. I just don't buy it. I just read these lyrics and think, you're lame. Like, you're just saying stupid shit for the sake of it. It's not for any reason other than that you just want a response. You're just being narcissistic. You just want that reaction from everyone. And it's kind of proof in today's age where, like, he was constantly moaning that Donald Trump didn't reply to any of the things that he'd said. Like, that's all he needs. That's all he wants. He just wants a reaction. And that doesn't make for great lyricism, I don't think. And that's where my opinion differs from a lot of people, because a lot of people say he's a great lyricist. And the only examples they give is when he's like being edgy and being dark and being sadistic. And those aren't really good examples to me. I don't really see those lyrics and think that's great lyricism. I just see it as like a wannabe edgelord, like a 16-year-old kid sat at the back of class, that one kid that always just had to shout out every time just to get a reaction from everyone laughing, get a reaction from the teacher. Like, that's what Eminem is. Like, that to me is when I listen to this album, that's what I'm thinking most of the time. And there's nothing wrong with being immature, like, there really isn't, but I just think there are better ways to do it. There's better humour than this, you know? And then we get to like the super like sick tracks like Kim, and I don't get the purpose of this song. Like, again, all I hear in this song is that he's trying to get a reaction from people, but I listen to this, I think it's unlistenable. Like, it's unbearable listening to him do this. Like, yeah, it's not real, it's art, but so what? Like, it's very different to watching a horror film, because you get the visuals, you get all the sort of backstory to it. Like, there's a serial killer doing some shitty stuff that's messed up, but this is music. Who wants to hear this on a song? I just can't bear to listen to it. And again, it's... Ugh. This to me is where people give Eminem the benefit of the doubt. But like, I just point to this song and think, you honestly can sit and listen to like 5 minutes of this? Really? Really? I mean, this is where hip hop is an issue in a way, because like it's always kind of like, oh, it's okay, it's just music. But I don't know, I don't think other genres ever get away with this kind of thing. It's only hip hop heads that defend it and be like, no, no, it's just art, it's just art. But it's not art. It's not a listenable song. Other unlistenable songs on this album, because there are plenty. Remember Me, that is just shit. I mean, remember me, remember me. How can you listen to that and think it's aged well? Like, it hasn't aged well. And Amityville as well. Amityville, if you don't go to Amityville. The hook on that song is horrendous. Like, again, it hasn't aged well. Even if Eminem is rapping well on the song, which honestly doesn't impress me that much on the song anyway, but you can't defend that hook. It is horrendous. I also wanted to mention as well, because those tracks have featured rappers, and I do kind of find it funny how Eminem has never really collaborated with that many rappers in his time. You would think that a big rapper like him would at least feature some other big rappers on his songs to kind of go head to head with, have a bit of sort of like a rap battle type thing. I think it's only telling that he doesn't, because he probably thinks that he's not good enough. Like, I think that's the issue. I think he just thinks, oh, if I'm on a song with another major rapper of the time, they're probably going to slay me and make me look worse. I think he, again, I mentioned he's a narcissist. I think that is very telling. To say how influential he is, you'd think some of these rappers would have kind of got put on and given a bigger audience. I mean, who is talking about RBX or Sticky Fingers anymore? No one! I know I haven't mentioned The Way I Am, and I know that was quite a big song for Eminem at the time, but personally, the main issue I have with this song is the sample. It's quite an obvious sample. I'm sure you already know it comes from an Eric B. and Rakim song. Whether or not you like the original song is personally your opinion, but I do really like Eric B. and Rakim, and that Paid in Full album to me is quite amazing. So whenever I hear The Way I Am, all I think of is the original song, and that's usually a big off-put for me. I don't really care for songs that do that. Like, if I'm constantly reminded of another song, I'm put off. So even if you think The Way I Am is great, that's fine. It is a good song, one of his better songs, but it's something I can't listen to because it's so obvious where it's come from. And honestly, I don't know if I have much else to say now. The closing track, The Kids, is pretty funny. I do like that song. It has like kind of like South Park feel to it. I do feel like that was one thing about this album. It did certainly remind me of South Park in some ways, with the humour and the like sort of offensive elements to it, and that is a good closing track. But other than that, I would skip like 70% of this album. I take away about 3 or 4 songs, like that's it. And I don't know, I just don't really get what's so good about it. I don't think my opinion will change on that, but it'd be interesting to see what people think. So I have quite a young following on this channel, and I do kind of wonder what people think of this album now, because I know a lot of older people will come out and be like, oh, it's a classic. But now years have gone by and more hip-hop has come out, I do kind of wonder if this one will sort of slip away a little bit as the years go on, because as we've kind of gotten a bit more PC, will these lyrics age as well in years to come? Again, I'm not offended by the lyrics, I just think they're not done very well. There are way better hip-hop albums that came out in the 2000s. Humour like this has been done better in other mediums, not just music, but in TV shows, specifically in films. So this one kind of doesn't really get the pass for me. I think a lot of this album is just either okay or at points great, and the rest of it is kind of bad. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. Eminem, Marshall Mathers, LP, what do you think? Am I wrong? Am I completely wrong? Am I an idiot? Let me know. Let me know. And subscribe to the channel for more reviews and more videos like this, because I do enjoy doing these Explain the Hype videos. And yeah, that's it. Have a good day.